how hard is it just to absorb a loss like this after going ahead by 20?
Next question, man. The season's over. That's what's hard. Being up 20. The season's over. You don't understand that. The season's over. It's hard. Stupid ass questions.
I mean, I think they're built to beat us in someone. I mean, just look at their roster. They have basically 2 All-Stars, 2 probably first defensive players in the year. Mike Conley, who is the most underrated player in the NBA, probably. I mean, I love the guy. He's so good, and he always makes the right play. Even he didn't shoot that well this was the name. Series, this game, in one moment he was the leading rebounder in the game for them. So, it's and from the bench they have a 6th player of the year. They have Kyle and Walker who was really good for them. So one team that they can do literally everything. They can be big, small. So.
By the end of yesterday, Michael, I felt like Ant-Man had pulled us into the quantum realm. Like, we literally saw some stuff yesterday that we've never seen. It was the first time in NBA history that 2 road teams won Game 7s on the same day. Road teams aren't supposed, you play all season to get Game 7 at home. Road teams aren't supposed to win Game 7s. It happens, but not that often, obviously. And we saw 2 do it on the same day. We saw 2 do it in record-setting fashion. The Wolves' record-setting comeback. Let's say that again. The Wolves' record-setting comeback, beating the defending champions 3 times on their home court in one series. And the Pacers' record-setting shooting performance in Madison Square Garden. What better place to have a Game 7? The Pacers are like Madison Square Garden, damn right. They really like the rims there. But before we get into unpack these series and before we look ahead to the conference finals, we got to go back to Michael Malone, who so articulately said, being up 20. Nah, Playboy. No.
Season's over.
I get that a 20-point lead don't mean what it used to. 20-point leads are erased like nothing in the modern NBA. But you was up 20. You were up 20 at the crib with Game 7 as the defending champions with the best player in the world, which arguably one of the best sidekicks in the world in Jamal Murray. Okay? I don't want to hear shit about how long your season was last year, how tired you are, how much you didn't get a chance to rest at the end of this season and it caught up to you, how you had to play your starters extra minutes. The Minnesota Timberwolves are not supposed to, let me say that again. The Minnesota Timberwolves, Alex Rodriguez's, or whoever the owns them, Alex Rodriguez's Minnesota Timberwolves are not supposed to come to altitude in your building as the defending champs and erase a 20-point second half lead. Maybe in the first half. In the second half, no, you're supposed to be moving on. So it's not being up 20. Being up 20 is the story. Being up 20 is the story. I know this wasn't Knicks Pacers. But you were up 20.
Ooh, you're going there. And listen, I don't know if you hear that drill in the background. That's what Minnesota did. That's what Minnesota did to Denver last night. They just really drilled them. And I just go back to Post Malone. Post Malone is great. Post-game sound of Mike Malone. Pre-game sound, parade sound from Mike Malone is fantastic. I mean, he is great. I'm sure the columnists and beat writers and podcasters and radio hosts out in Denver love hearing what Mike Malone has to say game to game. He always brings it, always. But what you're talking about, stupid questions, it's not a stupid question. See, that's cute. Everything's cute.
It's not a
when you're the
stupid
class, when you're the class of the league. When you're the class of the league and you come back 3-1 a couple of times in the bubble and people are on board and Jokic is the MVP and you're telling everybody how foolish they are by not recognizing the brilliance, the historical brilliance of Nikola Jokic. That's all cute. And he went to the parade. He was lit at the parade. Remember this? He was like, hey, y'all want to win it again? Yeah, I said it, you want, like he really had a few. Good for him. But you know what? What do you do in the Valley? Right now, this is your Valley moment, Denver Nuggets, and you're not the only one. The last 5, now this is 5 in a row, last 5 NBA champions that next year haven't made it out of the second round. So it's hard work.
Oh yeah,
that
we're gonna get to
crown
that.
is heavy.
Yeah,
I know that crown is heavy, but you know, like,
yeah.
I mean, like, come
Yeah.
on, man. Like, as you just laid out, you're not supposed to ask the question. This hasn't happened before. It's never happened. You're up by, not only were you up by 20 in the third quarter, and you lost that lead, you're up by 15 at halftime in Game 7 at home. In that situation, everybody else has won. Everybody else in that situation, up 15, halftime, Game 7, they win. You lose. We gotta ask about it. I'm sorry, we have to ask about it. And I'll tell you why it's not a stupid question. Because we got the response. Like a question, as you know, interviewing Guru, you know, what you're trying to do is get a sense, get a little glimpse of how that person feels, of their emotions. Not about you, it's about them. And we got it. We got it.
No, right.
He lashed out.
A hit dog holler. A
Yes.
hit dog hollered is what happened.
That's it.
Because deep down in places he won't talk about at parties, like, you know, like when he's it is quiet moments, he gonna say, he was up 20. Like, I mean, that's going to haunt him and haunt them for a long time. Everybody that does this on the highest level, they say that the losses are worse than the wins are great, or let's say it better than that. But the losses are what stick with them more than the wins. This is one of those losses that's going to sting and stick for a very, very long time. Could you imagine? I typically don't go here. I typically don't go here.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
I mean, just because it's often unnecessary. It's unnecessary to play the hypothetical game. You know, like, had that been LeBron, or had that been Angel Reese, or like, you know, like I don't need to do all that. But could you imagine if the Lakers or the Celtics or some marquee franchise, and I'm not disparaging Denver. I got a lot of respect for the Nuggets.
Heavily covered, heavily scrutinized.
Heavily scrutinized. Correct. Yeah. Major market. Denver's a huge metropolis, but like one of those like pillar franchises, okay, flagship franchises, heavily scrutinized franchises, had collapsed like this, had lost 3 times on their home floor to the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are supposedly, like, let's not just focus on the losing locker room here. This team's supposed to be soft, right? This is
said
the
that?
team of Rudy. Traditionally, Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns in particular have been associated with soft. Okay, that's their reputation as an organization. This is not an organization that has typically ventured into this deep into the postseason, as we know. Yesterday was the 20th anniversary of the only other Game 7 win. So shout out to the Timberwolves for belying their franchise's reputation and historic perception in the way that, in the mental and physical toughness that they showed in not only winning Game 7, but forcing Game 7 to begin with. Okay, like, and because they along with the Thunder, it was supposed to be still a little too early for them. Still a little too early, you know, like they're young, they don't know any better. I'll be damned, they knew exactly, they the ones that knew better in Game 7. I don't know what happened to Mike Malone's defending champion Denver Nuggets. And so so going back to the hypothetical, like, because it's Denver and because there's, I don't know, there's still like not quite that same level of, honestly, this probably is what Denver fans are talking about. It goes hand in hand. Because they don't get the same level of respect that they probably deserve for what they've done the last couple of years, the same level of scrutiny doesn't come with it because this is inexcusable. I don't care if you don't have the bench you had last year. I don't care. Again, I don't care about. I couldn't believe Michael Malone last night was talking last night about, like, we played a lot of games last year. All right, man. Like,
that's your
job.
privilege. That's your privilege. Right. And
job.
that's a privilege.
Like,
that's the privilege of the champ.
You weren't.
I tell you what,
you weren't tired when you were up 20. You were not tired when you were up 20.
Right. Last year didn't matter.
That was a Post Malone's concert last night. His concert last night was not befitting of a defending champion. It was not.
Right. Hey, okay. Last year. I mean, like those are two separate press conferences. So last night's press conference, this is not a retrospective on our year of being champions and what it's been like. This is not the time for that. That's day 2. That's a follow-up story. I mean, since he's telling journalists how to be journalists, let me just give you a little help here. Last night was in the moment game story. What happened? You're up by 20. Jokic dealing in the first half. Jamal Murray getting it done in the first half. Then you collapsed about 2 minutes into the third quarter was your peak. And then you collapsed. You were outscored. What was that, 60-36 at that point, down from that moment forward? And the three-point shooting went cold. Turnovers picked up. I mean, like Minnesota really, Rudy Gobert went to work offensively. Went to work.
Shooting jump.
Cat in foul trouble. And they were calling some terrible fouls on him, by the way. Cat and Gobert. Down the stretch, some bad fouls. If Minnesota had lost that game, that would have been the story. The story is like the officiating, but we're not going to talk about them right now. And they fell apart. So that had nothing to do with the 2023 championship run. They didn't have enough because Minnesota just continued to pressure them the entire series. I think they expected Minnesota to fold after Game 5. Mm-hmm. After Game 5, you got it. Now, they had you down. You take care of that business in Games 3 and 4 in Minneapolis, and they basically, I told you so, we're champions. Game 5, they win it convincingly again, and okay, all right, we got them. And they just didn't quit. They thought they had them again last night up by 20. This team does not quit. Minnesota's real. Minnesota is real. Cat's real.
Yeah,
Gobert's real. It's not just, we talk so much about Anthony Edwards. How about that guy, Mike Conley Jr.? Yeah.
Mike Conley,
Yeah.
Nasty Nas.
and Nasty Nas.
I'm sorry.
Hey, how about Jokic called him the most underrated player in the NBA. I don't know if he's that, but he's just steady. He's been around for a long time, knows what he's doing. Nas Reed, my guy who had the great game, now his name is escaping me right now. He had a great game.
McDaniels?
There he is, Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're a real problem. They are a real problem, and it's not just the Anthony Edwards story. And he doesn't want it to be their story either, because every opportunity he gets, Mike, he passes off. He does the opposite of what he does with the ball in his hands and a weak defender in front
I was
of him
about to
on the
say,
court.
I was about to say,
Off the court.
because
Off the court, he passes.
sometimes I'm like my guy. Let it go.
Yeah.
Swing that. It's like there were times in yesterday's game when I was like, listen, I know you said you didn't like the Jordan comparisons, but you've been watching too much of Come Fly With Me, because I'm like, bro, you over dribbling like a mug. Like, please give the ball up. So thankfully it did not come back to bite him. But no, they take on his personality. He's obviously the heart and soul and the heartbeat of that team. But you're right, it's not just him. He's not carrying them. At times they were carrying him yesterday, as has been pointed out. And I don't want to make it like Mike Malone pissed me off with that, that response to a very legitimate question. But I don't want to take anything away from, because it's always like, was it a choke or was it a comeback? Like, all the credit goes to Minnesota. All the credit goes to Minnesota. But if you're Denver, you can't. And again, I don't think it was everybody. But if you're the head coach of the Denver Nuggets, you can't say on one hand the better team won, not taking anything away from them, but here are all the reasons why we didn't get it done. Like that, his commentary post game, going back to Post Malone, I like that. His commentary post game was what you say after you lose in the first round. It's what you say after you squeak into the playoffs. After you barely get in the playoffs and nothing went right for you all season long. And it's just like you kind of stumbled in and you're like, yeah, the hangover was obvious. Not when you have the MVP again. Not when you have the best player in the world. Not when you're the number 2 seed and you have home court advantage in Game 7 against a team that has not been there, done that, and gotten the T-shirts. Correct. A team that has not been there, done that, and gotten the T-shirts. So it was lame. In a word, it was lame. But having said all that, all credit to Minnesota. They absolutely belong here. If the Nuggets choked, it was because the Timberwolves had both hands around their throats.
Yeah, and I would say, and both hands around their throat on the court and in the front office too. I mean, like these things happen, and it happens a lot in a number of sports, where the president of the Timberwolves used to be the president of the Denver Nuggets. So Tim Connolly, he left he left the Nuggets in 2022. Takes for Minnesota, trades for Gobert, tries to make some moves to have this team be in this position. And so obviously he sees the Nuggets win it last year and he thinks he's got the squad that can take down the Nuggets. He knows them as well as anybody. Now this is easier said than done. It did take 7 games. It did take a historic comeback, down 20 points in the third quarter at Ball Arena to make it happen, but it did happen. So this just is how razor thin it is. And it's not the old days. And so Mike Malone talking last night saying, hey, it's a failure, but it's not fatal. Like, we'll be back. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if he'll be back. I mean, like every year, and this is why I'm not dissing Denver either. Like, they deserve to win the championship last year. Jokic deserves to be MVP. I still think he's the best player in basketball. None of that changes. But last year, think about this. This rarely happens. Last year, they beat the Wolves in 5. They beat them in 5 games. It was a great series, but they beat them in 5. And then they won a championship. This year, the team you beat in 5 last year in the first round has come back in the second round, and they knocked you out in 7. Yeah, I mean, so who knows? Who's that going to be next year? Like, these teams are, somebody is close. Somebody's always close, and it wasn't like that 10 years ago. So, hey, maybe you got your one.
So let's
and enjoy it.
So let's have the dynasty conversation. I was going to give more props, but I've already made my point about both Cat and Gobert. I'll just say this quickly, that I'm happy for those guys. And it's going to be a theme for me during the show. Those guys are taking so much shit. Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, both of them have been maligned for their style of play, their personalities. Yeah. Some of it justifiably so. Others are just piling on. But it's nice to see those guys. It's nice to see those sheep turn into wolves. Go on fetch, dog. You gonna be a sheep or a wolf? Get your ink.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.